What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Hopefully you're having a great day. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be learning about if statements. Before we get too deep into the video, if you guys do enjoy, or this video does help you guys out, make sure you smash the like button, and also hit the subscribe button and turn those post notifications on if you want to get notified when I upload more Roblox development videos. Additionally, I have a Patreon if you guys would like to support me, link down below in the description. We also have a Discord where you can ask your questions and get support, or you can even help other people, link down below in the description to that as well, and let's get into it. So, starting off, what is an if statement? Well, if you look back at our previous code in our test script that we made last time, we can actually look at the choose brick color function right here, and we can actually see we've already made an if statement. So what we're saying right here is if number is equal to 0, then do something. So if statements are conditional structures. Basically, you say if, and then you have an expression. This right here is an expression. So this expression is we're checking what the number is, and now we're actually seeing if it is equal to 0, and then we're going to do something. Now, if number equals 0, then we are going to do something, which the something that we're going to do is we're going to return the brick color .blue. Right below this, we have an else if statement. So what this is going to do is first, it's going to check what the number variable actually is, and it's going to compare that to 0. And then if this is not true, what it's going to do is it's going to go down to the else if statement, and then it's going to check this expression right here. So this time, it's going to check if number is equal to 1, and then it's going to do something. So remember, if this returns true, then this will actually run, and it will return brick color blue. If this returns false, then it'll go down to the else if statement, check this statement, and if this returns true, then it will run this. If this is false or this is not true, then it will not do anything else, and it'll just go down to the rest of the script. Let's actually make a brand new function called local function test statement, and then we will take a number. So we're going to do the same thing that we did above. So we're going to say if number equals 0, then we're going to say print 0. Then what we're going to say is we're going to say else if number equals 1, then print 1. So we're going to delete this variable right here because we don't exactly need it right now. We'll also delete that function call. Now let's call the brand new function and let's pass in a number. So let's go ahead and pass in 0 and start our game. As we can see at the bottom, it actually printed 0. And if we click on that, we can see this is what was printed. So what we did right there is we call this function and we passed it in a number. And then with this if statement, we said if number is equal to 0, then do something. And that's what we did. We just did something. And as you can see, nothing below this function right here was actually called. So this wasn't checked at all, this wasn't printed, and nothing else was done. So as soon as an if statement returns true, it runs exactly what is inside of that code block, and then it completely stops. It's not going to go down to the else if right here, it's just going to stop right here, and that's it. Now let's go ahead, stop our game, and this time we will throw in 1 and start our game. So as we can see, it now printed out 1. So what it did is it first went to here and it said if number is equal to 0, then we would do this. But since number is not equal to 0, we're going to skip this code block completely. Then we went down to here and then it said if number is equal to 1, then do something, and since number is equal to 1 and this returns true, this is what ran. Now, let's stop the game again, and we can actually do one more thing. What we can do is we can actually write else, and then we can write print else. So what this is going to do, first it's going to check if it's 0. If this returns false, then it's going to go down to this statement. If this returns false, then it's actually going to go down to this statement. And what else means is every single other possibility. So basically, if number's not 0 and number's not 1, then it will meet else. So let's just go ahead and throw in number 3 and start up the game. So as we can see, else has been printed. The reason that else was printed is because it first checked if this was true, this was not true. It then checked if this expression was true, this was also not true, and then it went directly down to the else statement. So once again, the way that you can think about this is the first if statement says if this is true, then do something. And then we can look at this as else if the first one is not true, then we check if this is true, and then we do something. And the final else statement can say if all of the prior conditions are not met, then we do this. Now you don't actually need an else statement. You don't even need an else if statement. You could literally just have one if statement if you wanted to. But there's a lot of scenarios where you're going to want to have multiple if statements, else if statements, and you might also want to have an else statement. It all depends on your circumstances and what you're trying to create. But remember, this is the first condition which will get checked. This is the second one. This is basically the fallback condition which will catch everything if these first few aren't actually true. Now there's actually a couple of different ways that we can compare things and make expressions in the if statements. So let's go ahead and remove this else statement right here, and let's also remove the else if statement as well. So now what we're going going to say is if number is greater than or equal to 0, then do something. So now let's go ahead and start our game and see what prints. And as we can see, 0 has been printed. The reason for this is because we call this function with the number 3, and 3 is greater than or equal to 0, and clearly it's actually greater than. Now let's go ahead and remove the equal sign. Let's add an else statement, and let's say print else. And then when we call the function, let's actually throw in 0. So now what we're saying is if the number is greater than 0, print out 0. And if it's not greater than 0, print out else. So let's go ahead and start it up. And as we can see, else has been printed. All right, there's a couple of different comparators that we can actually use, and I typed them out all right here. So remember, we've already actually used the equal to, and I'll write that out for us here to give us another example. So we're going to say, if number equals 0, then do something. Then we also have not equal to. So we can say if number is not equal to 0, then print out not 0. We also have greater than. So we can say if number is greater than 0, print out greater than. And then we've also already used greater than or equal to. So if the number is greater than or equal to 0, do something. So what this will do, if we call the function with 1, then number would be greater than 0 because it's 1. And if we put 0, it will also return true because number is equal to 0. Now, we can also say less than 0 if number is less than 0. And we can call this function with -1, and that will return true. If we called it with 0, 0 is not less than 0, so this would return false. But if we say less than or equal to, and we call it 0, and we call the function with 0, and the number would be equal to 0. So this would return true. Now, these are all the comparisons that you can actually use with numbers. We can also compare strings as well. So let's make a brand new function, local function, just test string, and then we will take a string. Now let's say if string is equal to test, then print true. So now let's go ahead and remove this function call real quick, and now let's call test string and provide it a string. If you guys are still a little bit confused about what strings are, they're literally just sentences or words surrounded in quotation marks. So let's go ahead and call test, and now let's start the game. So as we can see, true was printed. If we click on it, we can see that it was printed and it's within this if statement's code block. So we call test string and we sent in the word test, and we're saying if string is equal to test, then do something. Let's stop the game, and now let's actually throw in test and start the game again. And as we can see, nothing was actually printed this time. The reason that nothing was printed is because test in lowercase is not equal to test in uppercase. So now we could actually change this if statement to not equal to, and this is a little weird symbol right here. This is actually called the wave symbol. The way that you actually use this symbol is it's right below your escape key at the top left-hand corner of your keyboard. It's directly to the left of the 1 or the exclamation mark, right above the tab and right below the escape key. You hold shift and then you click that key right next to the 1 key, and then you'll have a wave. It's a really weird symbol. I've never used it anywhere else besides programming and scripting with Lua, but yes, that's how you actually use the symbol. So now what this is saying is if string does not equal test, then do something. So we can go ahead, run the game again, and we can see true has been printed because lowercase test is not equal to test. So of course with strings, you're not able to use greater than comparisons. You're not able to use less than comparisons. You would only be using equal comparisons or not equal to comparisons. It wouldn't make sense for words to be greater than other words. Okay, so far we've learned how to compare number expressions. We've also learned how to compare strings. Now let's also compare Booleans. Let's make a new function, local function test Boolean, and then let's provide it a Boolean. And now we're going to say if Boolean equals true, then print true. And we'll also write else print false. So remember, a Boolean can either be true or false. It cannot be anything else. So now let's remove this function call right here and let's call the brand new function. Let's throw in true. And now let's go ahead and start the game. And as we can see, true has been printed to the console. So stop the game. There's actually a different way that you can sort of compare with Booleans. So rather than saying equal to, we can actually remove this. And this looks a little bit weird, but what this is actually saying is if Boolean is true, then do something. So you can sort of think about this in a way of Booleans by default are valued to true in this sort of instance when you're comparing it like this. So once again, if Boolean is true, then print true. Else print false. So we can start the game again and we can see it has printed out true. Now, if we wanted to do the opposite of this and we wanted to check if the Boolean is false, then we can actually say if not Boolean, then do something. And we can return false. And for the else statement, let's return true. So this is going to call the function. We're going to give it a Boolean, either true or false. So this time we're going to give it true. And this is basically saying if Boolean is not true, then print false, else print true. So let's go ahead and start the game. And as we can see, true has been printed. Let's also call the function with false, start the game, and we can now see that false has been printed. So with Booleans, you can compare them in a couple of different ways. So you can say if not, but you can also say not equal to true, or you could say equal to false. That's like 3 different ways to make the same exact if statement. Obviously, this and also this is a little bit longer than just saying if not Boolean. So there's a few different ways that you can make it. I would recommend that you sort of make it the easiest way that you can remember, maybe start off a little bit slow and change your ways eventually after you fully understand the concepts and everything. But yeah, this way is just exactly like comparing strings and number expressions. You can also do this as well. And then this one is specifically for Booleans and other little data types which we aren't too familiar with yet. Okay, we can also make multi-condition if statements. So let's go ahead and actually delete the test Boolean, and we're going to start working with the test string again. So let's add another argument to this function, and let's say Boolean, and then let's go ahead and call the test string function, and we're going to throw inside of it test and false. Okay, so now we can say if string equals test, then do something. But what if we also wanted to check what Boolean was? We can actually say if string equals test and Boolean equals true, then do something. So now what this is going to do is it's going to first check if the string equals the test. And if the string equals the test, then it's going to go to the next expression, and the next expression is Boolean equals to true. And if both of these are true, then it will print out true. So let's go ahead and provide this function when we call it test and true. And now if we start our game, this will return true. So now let's go ahead and stop the game, and let's make an else if string equals test and Boolean does not equal true, then print false. This time when we call the function, we can call it with lowercase test and true, and now what this is going to do, it actually shouldn't print out anything, because every single time we're checking the if statements, we're actually checking if test is all capitalized. Let's go ahead and start the game, and as we can see, nothing has been printed out. Now instead of doing and, we can actually replace this with or, and what this will check now is if string is equal to test or if Boolean is equal to true. So let's actually go ahead and say test all capitalized when we call the function, and let's actually return false. So now it's going to check if the string is equal to test, which it will return true. So this will automatically print out true, and it will actually stop because it doesn't need to check the Boolean statement since this expression actually returns true. So let's go ahead and start the game, and we can see true has been printed out. Now let's actually throw any word in string when we call the function, and let's actually throw in true this time. So it's going to check this expression, and this is actually going to return false this time because we're calling it with this random string. Rather than going down here, it will actually go after the or, and it's going to check the Boolean and check this expression. And if this returns true, then it'll print. If it doesn't return true, it'll go down to the next else if statement, and it's going to go ahead and check these. So let's go ahead and start the game. And as we can see, true has been printed. So we can add as many ands or ors onto this as we wanted to. We could also say if Boolean is equal to false, then we can do this. Then we can run this code block right here. We can also say or string equals to monster, then do something, or if string equals to Monster, then do something, and we can go on for as long as we want to do. It's endless when using or ands. So if statements and conditional checks are such a big part of programming. 99% of the time when you're coding, you're going to be using functions, you're going to be using variables, and you're also going to be using if statements. These are all basic fundamentals of every single coding language in the entire world. You can use if and conditional checks in so many different places. Imagine if you wanted to check the player's health and then do something. That would be an if statement. Imagine if you wanted to check what block or what part the player is touching. That's an if statement. Imagine if you wanted to check the speed of a player. You would use an if statement, and then you would do something based on what the speed of the player is, or how much health the player has, and then you would do something based on how much health they have. There's so many different scenarios where you're going to be using if statements, and most likely in the next episode, we will be using more if statements when we can actually dive deeper into the obby scenario. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, as always, if this video did help you guys out, make sure you smash the like button, and also hit the subscribe button if you guys are brand new around here and you guys want to see some more Roblox development videos. I also have a Patreon. If you guys would like to support me, go down below in the description and click the Patreon link. We also have a public Discord if you guys want to ask questions, get support, or help other people. Link down below to that as well. Go ahead and join it. As always, leave your feedback and questions in the comment section down below. I really appreciate it, and I'd love to help you guys out. Anyway, I hope that you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.